Welcome to the Head of the Breach podcast, where we talk everything offensive security. I'm your host, Case Camilleri, and today we're recording live at Black Hat and DEF CON. I have Andrew Morris with me today. Andrew is the founder and chief architect at GreyNoize Intelligence, a cybersecurity company that helps organizations filter out internet background noise to focus on real threats. With a background in offensive security and threat intelligence, Andrew has worked across both government and private sectors. At GreyNoize, he leads the design of a global sensor network that tracks internet-wide scanning activity and transforms it into actual threat data. Andrew, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So what is it like to actually build that sensor network? You built it from scratch.
From ground up, yeah, from nothing.
All right, tell me a little bit about that.
It's like getting to know a lot of different weird APIs is a big one, and like learning how not everybody is like as good as AWS with their like, you can just like make a REST call and they give you a computer.
Yeah.
You learn that the internet is incredibly messed up, and the internet's messed up in a lot of different ways in different places.
Like meaning people break RFCs, they don't follow.
I don't even think it's fair to say people break RFCs. I think that RFCs are like recommendations. they're like gentle, kind of guidance per se. But no, you learn that there's differences in the kinds of traffic that you see that's going into and out of Bulgaria versus Iran versus, maybe Rhode Island or something like that. And you learn that the internet is extremely noisy.
Yeah.
And you see, for me, the silliest part is whenever I see like one of those news articles, I guarantee you've seen one of these where it's like, XYZ Security Operations Center deals with 5 bazillion trillion threats every day. And you're like, that's not real.
Yeah.
You're like, port scans.
Yeah.
You're talking about port scans.
Yeah, right.
They see that many packets against...
Which they probably can't even tell if they're real or...
No, that's right. They're like, nope, it's all APTs. Every single one of them. All 5 bazillion of them.
And marketing at its finest.
Yeah, and it's not. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? So, So anyways, you can literally set up just a computer on the internet. You can spin up a box in AWS and just run a packet sniffer on it. It will get hit with 5 bazillion million packets attacks every, day. It's ridiculous. The internet's very noisy.
Yeah. And because the internet is noisy, how do you filter out what is that BS noise versus real actual threats?
It is profoundly simple. Do you know how noise canceling headphones work?
Yeah.
You just capture a little bit of ambient noise, and then you functionally play the precise opposite of that to filter it out from what the listener's hearing. So people have a tendency to think that internet background noise is like this natural weather phenomenon, or it's like, created by God, or it's like, static electricity or something like that, but it's not. It's an enumeratable set of data. There is somebody scanning the internet at that exact point times a million at any given point in time from a place for a reason. So what that means is let's say I were to ask you, what is the normal amount of internet scan and attack traffic for any random host on the internet to see right now?
I don't think I could tell you.
It is a very hard question to answer, but it's an answerable question. You just have to say like, well, all right, well, the way that I would figure that out is I would set up maybe 10 servers in every region of AWS, 10 servers in every region of Azure, Google Cloud, and then I would do that in all the other ones, DigitalOcean, OVH, all these other ones. And then you would just keep doing that iteratively until you had functionally what was actually a definitive list at a point in time of all the IPs that were scanning the internet or attacking the internet at that exact point in time. And then if you were to have a log file or a SIM or something like that, and you'd be like, hey, Andrew, filter out all the internet background noise from this. It's like grep. You just remove those out, and that's it. And what you're left with is a nice, clean signal of what's hitting you, like noise canceling headphones.
Nice. So, nowadays I'm oversimplifying here, but you probably have like a really great data set of like who regularly does this that's not malicious, who, that is like vendor scanning for different things like that, and that just goes into your grep file.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah. So there's lots of different reasons, like just like port scanners, just like like maybe something like Metasploit, maybe something like even like password crackers and stuff like that. There's dual use for everything.
Okay.
There's legitimate, totally non-malicious reasons to scan and crawl the internet. There's totally legitimate reasons to port scan a box. Sysadmins do it all the time. Network admins do it all the time. There's nothing wrong with getting scanned on the internet. Google, built their business on port scanning and then crawling and indexing content on the internet of other people's servers, right? They've been doing it for years, right?
Yep.
So there's nothing wrong with that. And then at the same time, bad guys might be crawling the internet to find who's running vulnerable software to try to compromise it. And that's bad, right? Even though the traffic might be the same. So yeah, there's a ton of different reasons to do that. There are little tricks and indicators that you can use to try to map who is who and what they're up to and why they're scanning the internet. Because I think at the end of the day, what you're kind of getting at is like, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys that are doing it? What does that list kind of look like? There's like ways that you can scan the internet and not be kind of an asshole about it. Like, you can use RDNS, you can use user agents, an opt-out list, you can respect all that kind of stuff. You can have you can respect robots.txt, all that kind of stuff.
So for you, those are indicators that like you're a good
guy. You know what I mean? And as a general rule, the good guy indicators, so to speak, is when you follow the rules and when you come from where you say you're going to come from. Or when you advertise something that solidly links you to that domain. And when somebody says, I don't want to be scanned anymore, you actually listen to them, right? Bad guys are unfortunately like kind of, I don't want to say everything else because there's nothing wrong with scanning the internet as a security researcher, but the bad guys would be like, why are you logging into my box? Right? You can't do that. Why are you sending an exploit payload or, probing for a vulnerability on the same day as the disclosure of a vulnerability, in a path of software, something like that, right? So, we do have a big list of that. That list is worthless and useless after about 2 days because the internet is dynamic. People get new IPs all the time. People go through Tor exit nodes. People go through VPNs. People go through proxies. So the data goes stale pretty quick, but we do have it on any given day. We've got it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I wrote something called Proxy Cannon, which uses OpenVPN to basically route every different session through different things I stand up because I did it for that reason. I want to mimic a real threat actor, defense evasion, Yep,
it makes sense, right? Like we can see, and what's fun for us is that in certain cases, we can actually fingerprint the implementation of those tools. I don't know that one, but I know there's a ton of different ones. Proxy chains is another one. And I'm blanking on others, but there's ways that you can fingerprint, the implementation of that software itself. Sometimes it's at a lower level. It's like a network fingerprint. You can see MTU overhead to know that somebody, before they came to that box that's hitting you, they were going through a network layer VPN or something, because maybe they've got 20 bytes of MTU overhead or 30 bytes of MTU overhead. So you know that it's IPsec or WireGuard on the other side of it. Like you just know. In other cases, you'll see stuff like TLS fingerprints or whatever that are, of a popular TLS implementation, of a popular proxy library or something like that, using a JA3 or JA4 or something like that. And so those are all little things that we use to try to make the decision if something's good or bad, or just to figure out if that's actually the place where it's really coming from. Because most of the time it's not.
Yeah, interesting. What do you think is the most crazy advanced attack that you've identified?
Crazy advanced.
Like, what's something that you sat there and like, oh, now that's kick ass. That's interesting.
I saw one that was very silly, but that I thought was really cool. 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, it was a attack where you had a bunch of IPs on the internet, many thousands of IPs on the internet, rotating through lots of residential and cloud IP space, brute forcing Cisco ASA credentials, and brute forcing, Cisco login pages and stuff like that. And what was really fascinating about it was that they were only hitting Cisco devices that were geographically located inside the United States, and the user and the passwords were all capital S, like summer 23 or something. Like something that you know, working in the business, everybody does it. It's always going to work, right?
Yeah.
And it might not work for everybody, but everyone's going to have one person there that's...
Yep.
And when I looked at the password wasn't interesting. The IPs that they were coming from wasn't particularly interesting either. There was no exploit. There was no vulnerability, right? What was interesting is that the usernames were American usernames. It was like first name, like sort of American names.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the time, then it would be like a first initial, last name or whatever. And then in digging into it, I was like, these have a good amount of overlap with sysadmins pulled off of LinkedIn.
Oh.
And so like that was cool to me because of how dumb it was.
Yeah.
And a lot of Cisco devices were getting popped that way. Cisco sent down an advisory. We worked with Cisco on it. It was really interesting. But yeah, that was one of them. Man.
It's interesting because it's simple. It's exactly what you did as a penetration tester.
And it just works.
And it just works, right? But like nowadays, I feel like you can get way more intelligent about like the precision of the attack, right? Like at scale.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's what we do is we test, continuously at scale, across all the technologies. And like, that's exactly how we, we operate.
I thought of another one that I really liked a lot. And I hope, I'm not going to say his name, but I know the guy who did it. Two people got in a little pissing match on the internet a long time ago.
No, don't.
Yeah. And I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to get in trouble. So I don't want to go into the specifics of it. But somebody said that IPs that were scanning their network on the internet were bad, and they were putting them on a threat feed. And the threat feed was being consumed by every threat intelligence company and every big financial in the world. And there was a security researcher who was trying to explain, they got, blacklisted on a threat feed or whatever. They said, hey, guy, you can't just put an IP on a malicious list because they scanned you on the internet. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. And they're like, yeah, you can't watch me, right? Like I put you over here. So then, the issue with this is you can spoof IPs on the internet. Here in the year of our Lord 2025, you can spoof IPs on the internet. You can't complete three-way handshakes, but I can send you, if I, give a bottle of liquor to a sysadmin and he removes the ACLs on his network and lets me craft packets to you from Google Public DNS, I can do that right now. So anyways, a couple years ago, somebody starts, in order to prove to said person this isn't a big deal, they started spoof scanning the entire internet from the IP space of several of the largest banks in the world. So it looked like all of a sudden Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, like that they were scanning the internet from everywhere, and they weren't. They were doing nothing, right? Yeah. Just to prove the point of like, you can't knock an IP for scanning alone in and of itself. So then networks on the internet started blocking the largest bank's IP space in the world, and some of those might even have blocked themselves from themselves, and things might have fallen over. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. We saw it in our network, and I looked at it, and in 5 seconds, I was like, this is obviously being spoofed. There's no TCP three-way handshakes. There's no reason to be concerned. That was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life. It was an entire debacle. Everyone, because you don't know. If somebody calls you and they're like, hey, I'm seeing you blast my, your network is scanning the crap out of me. You're like, oh my God, we're popped. They weren't popped. There's nothing. It's ridiculous.
So what made you think like, I can build the world's best, the world's best?
Arrogance, ego, massive network, massive ego.
But was there like a compelling point where you're like, all right, like move it, I'll move side, I'll do this?
I thought you meant move it, like move IT. That one was pretty bad.
Nick Burns, the IT computer guy, you ever seen that? Saying, move, like I got this, I'm gonna do it. Like that's what I'm thinking, right? What was the compelling event where you're like, all right, like I'll build it? Like, was there a pain point that you were experiencing, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think combination of different things, but one is I loved Shodan, and I love John Matherly, and I thought it was such a useful, really cool implementation of something that was fascinating for hackers. And I thought it was so interesting, and that came out when I was like, maybe a teenager. Yeah, I was when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's super cool. What about the opposite of showdown, right? Like, what about the people who listen, right?
Yeah.
So that I can figure out if there are any other showdowns or something like that. So I thought that was interesting. It didn't exist. Nobody else built it. And so that was one reason. Another is that it's hard to explain, but one of the most inspiring things to ever happen to me is that I wanted to be an entrepreneur of some kind, but I was scared that I wasn't smart enough to do it, or that I didn't have it in me. I had, pretty bad imposter syndrome. And then I met kind of almost like a hero of mine. And I asked him some questions about starting a business and building a system. And I talked to him for a little while, and he was one of the dumbest people I'd ever met in my life. And I was like, oh my God, you don't have to be that smart to do this. Like, oh my God, you just have to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's okay to not be that smart. You just got to do it and like not be that afraid of being like humiliated in front of a bunch of people. And then it's fine,
Exactly.
So I would say, yeah, sheer arrogance and ego. The technical challenge of just doing it, right? You learn more from like chasing something all the way down to when it doesn't work anymore than you would learn from just like building something in your head, and then somebody else like tells you why it's not going to work, and you're like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
So those are some of the reasons. But yeah, GreyNoise was and is a learning experience for me.
Yeah.
Like I learned entire programming languages just to build the components of the system in that language.
Yeah.
Because it made the most sense. I didn't know Go at all before I wrote it, but I was building a web API, and I know that Go's great for fast, performant web APIs. So I learned Go to write the API for it, right? We had a log forwarder that I implemented that used, a different language just because it was the right one for it. So it's a learning experience for me. It continues to be. And and I don't know, I've always been really interested in like networking, packets moving, packets being forwarded, packets slipping through other places. When I was a pen tester, one of my specialties was like traffic forwarding, encapsulation, traffic forwarding. Like if you can get one packet, if you can get traffic on one port into and out of a network, you can get everything you need into and out of that whole network.
Yeah.
That's how GreyNoise works, is that we have a bunch of, we have packets that are slipping into and out of places, and we're collecting stuff and encapsulating it and storing it and running it against rules. And so, yeah, it's a fun technical set of problems.
Listen, if you made it this far, I'm just going to ask you for one favor. Most of you listening right now haven't subscribed. Go ahead, feed that algorithm, and support us by clicking subscribe. Doing so allows me to bring you great content and allows us to bring more exceptional guests onto the podcast. Go ahead, hit subscribe. I appreciate it. What was the hardest technical challenge, or what is the hardest technical challenge in building the company? And then what's the hardest operational from, being a founder and just running a business? Is this your first business?
My first business.
Okay.
I tried to start, I started something else with a friend, and we didn't get it off the ground. And then I took a little break, and then I started GreyNoise. Hardest technical challenge is network traffic and network protocols look like lots of different things. On the wire, it's just bytes, right? And different protocols are going to be sliced and diced in different ways. And the hackers don't follow any rhyme or reason behind what they're going to, like what protocols they're going to be exploiting, or where they're going to hide shellcode, or where they're going to, slip a backdoor in or something like that. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
So that means that you kind of have to be able to support a certain level of pattern matching and indexing primitives on raw, unstructured byte data. And that's a lot of data and a lot of compute, a lot of complex operations. So just the data indexing, the data warehousing is a pretty big technical challenge. Being able to apply rules of lots of different formats to the data in sort of like a line rate of, maybe billions of sessions a day is pretty tricky.
Build from a performance and like scalability aspect of it.
Yeah. And like,
easy to do it when you have 50 customers, really hard to do it when you have 100,000.
I would say it's easier to do when you have 50 sensors, harder to do when you have, 100,000. Most of our customers, we don't deploy sensors for.
Okay.
Most of our customers, we just give them a read pipe of the data or access to the API or whatever, right? The only other thing, so building an internet-wide distributed sensor network is really like getting something running in every region of AWS, Google Cloud, like the tier ones, you can do that in a weekend, no problem, right? Then getting it down to the ones sort of below that, right? Like the slightly smaller ones, the more regional ones, that is going to take you, a couple weeks, couple months, right? Then as soon as you start getting sort of below that to like, Joe Smith host, right? Which is like ultra local to Ukraine, right? Or something like AWS isn't in Ukraine, you know what I mean? Right. So like you don't get the same, you don't get those same like robust APIs and stuff like that. That's when it starts to get really tricky. Then you've got to assume that you're going to be burned. Like people are going to find out that something's a honeypot network. You're going to accidentally leak your IPs to somebody, something like that. Somebody's going to fingerprint you. Someone's going to just get in a internet measuring contest with you just to try to, and try to fingerprint your stuff. And maybe they do it, maybe they don't. So you're going to have to burn them and turn them all back up. You can't just stand something up once, leave it there all precious. Like you're going to have to burn it. Not once, not twice. It's a 1990s. And again, and again, and again, right? So being able to handle that kind of stuff is those are some of the bigger technical challenges. Operationally, I mean, like starting a business, I don't know. You got to get the right team, stuff like that. That makes everything easier. You got to have a stomach for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just
from a risk perspective or from like, from a leadership perspective?
I'd say more for a leadership perspective, right? Like you've got to have, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes a lot of like, I've been on the road right now for 3 weeks, right? I was in 2 different places before I came here. I'm going to go somewhere else after this before I get back home, right? So it takes, there's a lot of stomach to it, right? And so I just, again, like, operationally, I don't do it. I have a great team at GreyNoise that manages all of the operations of the business. The sales team's fantastic. Our ops team, our finance team, our customer team, everybody. They're all absolutely incredible. So I have the easiest part of all this, but yeah, just the stomach to press on is tough and to grow because every year or two, everything you spend so much time figuring out breaks. It just shatters apart in front of your face, and you've got to do something else, right?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. You're like, thank God I finally figured it out, just in time for it to not work at all anymore. Right?
Yeah. Different phases of building. And you're like, yep, that's extinct. That doesn't work.
That's right. Yeah, that doesn't work anymore. All right. Yep.
You have all these sensors. You get access to a lot of really cool data to look at. Is there anything else that you found like, oh, shit, this is a great, I didn't expect the data to tell me this, or I didn't know I could do this with the data. Was there any unforeseen like advantages?
Not really. People ask me that a lot. This is like a pretty purpose-built system to track scanning and exploitation of stuff on the internet. So not really. Some of the weird little things though, is that, it can be interesting to identify like once the grid gets big enough, you start to be able to see little patterns in like the targeting behaviors of stuff. So like I can see bad stuff that's only happening to our sensors in Turkey, or you can see bad stuff that's only happening from, IPs in this country or something like that, right? Those are some of them. Figuring out infrastructure that's likely to belong to people who have a very specific geographic interest. So that I think is really fascinating. Or the same for like a software interest, right? Like we've got sensors that look like MikroTik routers. We've got sensors that look like IP cameras. And it's interesting because from the scanner or the attacker's perspective, they're hitting everything that matches a piece of software. From my perspective, you're hitting all of my things that look like MikroTiks and never anything else. So I know that you're interested in MikroTiks, you know what I'm saying? So those are fascinating. Sometimes as an early warning system, believe it or not, like it's taken us a while. I'll give you a copy of this research, but our chief scientist, Bob Savage, absolute legend, he put together some research. He did some research to figure out that whenever we see these big spikes in inventory scanning or crawling for specific kinds of software or specific kinds of hardware, we're seeing, as a general rule, like 3 to 4 weeks later, a pretty bad vulnerability is disclosed publicly in those. So all I know is that it's pretty normal for either the offender, who is the one who knows about the vulnerability, doing an inventory scan to figure out how many devices he can pop with that vuln, or the defender, who's the one doing the reporting, and they want to figure out what's our exposure actually. Right. Like we got to figure out in short order. One of those two is trying to answer those questions. So whenever we see one of these big spikes in IPs looking for something, like 80% of the time, a really bad vuln comes out in the next 4 weeks. And we've got like the receipts to prove that over the last 5 years. So that is wild to me.
Yeah.
I feel like me and Bob and the research team have known that in our hearts for a long time, but to see it like now laid out in the data on paper, like that's right there. Like I'm looking at it right now. That's nuts.
Have you guys released anything like saying this is coming? We don't know exactly what, but like
this is coming. Yeah, we do this. I mean, our blog, we do this. So Noah is our content writer. He's working with the research team to every time we see something that we deem noteworthy, we'll write a post about it. And we don't want to be ambulance chasers. We don't want to just grab attention for, a bunch of people scanning the internet.
But you have data to...
Yeah, but at this point, it looks like every time this happens, something bad happens. We've predicted, and prediction is I don't want to hang my hat on that, right? Because I don't want to jinx it. But we have probably 4 or 5 times in the last year written a blog post about an insane amount of activity that we've seen against maybe a Palo Alto, against maybe Cisco devices. Again, not picking on them. They're just the devices that are out there running on the edge that bad guys are trying to get into. And only for then 1, 2, 3 weeks later, a bad software vulnerability comes out in them. And like 3 or 4 times this year, we've identified those. So that's pretty wild. The only other one is we've picked out a couple of 0 days this year, which is baffling. But everything that hits a GreyNoise sensor goes through a pretty robust kind of classification pipeline. And when stuff comes out that doesn't hit a rule, and somebody from our research team grabs that, they do a bit of triage to figure out what it is targeting or what kind of device it is. They get a real copy of that thing, they replay it against it, and it works. And there is no vuln for it, and there is no patch. This happens from time to time. We'll disclose it to the vendor, we'll get it fixed, and then our name will be on it, which is goofy because we're not even the ones who found it. Somebody else did. We stole it, right? Yeah, I call it second blood. And so, yeah, these are some of the sort of wacky things that have happened. And both the spikes and the 0 days are happening more often now. And some people might tell you it's because the internet's getting scarier. I would just tell you that it's because the cat's out of the bag, that embedded systems are Swiss cheese.
Yeah, right. It's like 1990s hacking.
That's right. I mean, you could be like a first-year computer science student being absolute, Matrix level Trinity Neo hacker, dancing these, terrible, embedded systems, exploiting them like it's this. They don't have any security features. Yeah. Not, it's ridiculous. So, anyways, yeah.
I remember getting really curious, because I had a DSL modem, and I was like, I started tearing this thing apart, and I was like, okay, I'm going to see if I can cross-compile TCP dump so I can see what's going on at the WAN port at my DSL modem. And it's like, holy shit, there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens before you can even see it, right?
Right, that's right.
So it's kind of like...
Imagine doing that times 5,000. Yeah. And having all that streamed to one place so that you could run TCP dump on a pseudo interface that is a small sample of the entire internet. Yeah, that's what we do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, who benefits from that data? If someone needs this type of data, what's the best use cases for it?
3. Number 1, you work in a SOC, you work on a security team, you deal with alerts. Is this thing hitting everybody, or is it just hitting me? Do a quick lookup. It's hitting everybody. It's Census, it's Shodan, it's Google, it's a Mirai infection, whatever. Move on. 2, is this vulnerability being exploited in the wild? Is the shit hitting the fan on this thing or not? Right? New scary vulnerability comes out. Hey, GreyNoise, can you tell me when you guys start actually seeing people exploiting it? And then I'm seriously going to be worried about it. But until then, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
3, tell me if anything that belongs to me gets compromised. Right? University, hotel network, anybody who's got to deal with a lot of untrusted stuff, data centers, hosting providers, ISPs. Tell me about the stuff that GreyNoise knows about that gets popped. And ideally, tell me about it before the FBI comes knocking and says, your machine over here has been used in a really big, scary breach. You don't want that to happen, right? So maybe do something about it before that.
Was it hard to build sensors in certain countries and certain areas?
Yes.
Is there places that you're still trying to get sensors into?
No.
Succeeded.
There are places where they don't want to do business with Americans. There's places where they don't want to, they are fine with doing business with Americans, but they're going to treat you differently, or they're going to put you in different networks than if you were of their nationality. There's places that don't allow legally, that don't allow the encryption
to be sent
out of the network, that we have to smuggle our stuff in and figure out a way to smuggle the encrypted traffic in and around. There's places where we have to take specific routes around the internet, where we have to go from this place to a demarcate, like to a place that's kind of friendly, kind of not friendly over here, where encryption is totally fine. And then from AWS inside here to AWS inside here, back to us. There's a lot of that. There's places where if you install Ubuntu, like you just bring in an Ubuntu box and you run apt-get update, you're going to get a certificate error.
Okay.
And you're like, why did I get a certificate error just now? So, yeah.
Cool. Well, we keep talking about this, but I think it's great conversation. It's respect everything that you've built.
Thank you.
It's really, really cool. Really cool problem to work on, right?
It is.
And it shows you're pretty passionate about it. But Andrew, if someone wants to follow you, get in touch with GreyNoise, how should they do so?
I'm like a ghost on the socials these days, which I highly recommend for all of you. It's great on the mental health. My email's andrew@greynoise.io. Send me a note. Otherwise, get in touch with anybody at GreyNoise. They all know how to get to me. But I'm always around at stuff like this. I used to be on Twitter, not on Twitter anymore. I miss it. But alas.
I miss it too.
Alas. So I'm off that. But yeah, I mean, Andrew at GreyNoise, shoot me an email. I'm easy to find.
Thanks for coming on, Andrew.
Thanks, man.
If you've made it this far, do me a favor and check out what we do at Sprocket Security. If you're ever in need of a penetration test and you want that hybrid scalable approach, the always testing, always on, not this fake click a button, do a pen test 2 weeks and then do that 5 times a year. No, I mean always on, always testing, latest bleeding edge threat that comes out there, latest exploit, phishing, all the way to, defense evading, covert operations, whatever type of pen test you need. We'll do it as frequently as possible, and we'll also provide a platform for us to interact together. I've devoted the last 5 years of my life to building penetration testing and innovating upon it and changing it so you can actually do security testing, proactive security testing, in a much better way. Give it a shot. Check us out, www.sprocketsecurity.com.